My name is Cadence, and I work the closing shift at a small dive bar on the outskirts of town. It's nothing special, just a dimly lit watering hole where the jukebox has been playing the same rotation of classic rock for years. The regulars know each other by name, truckers passing through stop for a stiff drink, and the occasional lost tourist stumbles in, looking for something stronger than directions. I don't mind the job. It's predictable. The tips are decent. I've learned to handle all types, the talkers, the flirters, the quiet drinkers, and the ones who just want to be left alone. Weekends are chaotic, but on weeknights, I work alone. No barback, no security, just me, a few scattered patrons, and the occasional bar fight when tempers flare. That's why I noticed him immediately. It was past 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when he walked in. If I had to guess, he was in his late 40s, clean-cut, well-groomed, not the kind of man you'd expect to see in a place like this. He wore a black turtleneck under a dark trench coat, his presence exuding quiet sophistication, the kind of wealth that doesn't need to be flashy. He moved with purpose, scanning the room before settling onto a bar stool. His posture was unnaturally straight. When I approached, he glanced at the shelves behind me and ordered top-shelf liquor without hesitation. As I poured his drink, he smiled and asked if I liked working here. It was a harmless question, so I answered honestly. Yes, I liked it. I even cracked a joke about bartending. I wish I could say I got a bad vibe from him, but I didn't. He had the easy charm of a single dad at a Little League game, the kind that gives the whole team high fives. He made small talk, which I didn't mind, given how slow the night was. Then he asked if I ever thought about doing something bigger. A strange question, but not creepy. I gave him my usual polite bartender smile and told him I was happy for now. He nodded, taking a slow sip of his drink, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of disappointment. After a long pause, he asked what time I got off work. The question threw me. I hadn't picked up any flirting from him, so it was disappointing to realize that our conversation had just been another attempt at getting my number. I gave a vague answer and busied myself wiping down the counter. But he didn't press. He simply smiled like he already knew. Then he laid a crisp $100 bill on the bar, drained his drink, and walked out into the night. I didn't think much of it, just another odd encounter in a job full of them. But I was wrong. A week later, he came back, and this time, he wasn't alone. The woman with him caught my attention immediately. I'd never seen her before. She looked mid-30s, dressed trendy but slightly off, like someone trying too hard to blend in with a younger crowd. Everything about her seemed calculated, the way she smiled too easily, the way she leaned on the bar like we were already friends. Before I could greet them, she spoke. "You're so pretty," she said, her fingers grazing my arm a second too long. I laughed, thanked her, but something about her felt wrong. The man didn't speak at all this time, just watched. They ordered drinks, and as I poured, the woman peppered me with questions. How long I'd worked here, how old I was, little things that seemed harmless on their own, but felt more like an interrogation when strung together. Then she got to the point. "I run an exclusive event club," she said, lowering her voice as if someone might overhear. "We're always looking for young, fun people, private parties. You'd make a killing, 10 grand for a weekend." I let out a forced laugh. Sounds too good to be true. "It's real," she insisted, her smile frozen in place. "Lots of girls like you work for us." Something in my gut twisted. Then she said it. You should step outside for a second. There's someone who can explain it better." My pulse kicked up. "No," I said, my voice firm. No smile this time. Just then, a group of customers walked in, loud and laughing. The woman's expression flickered, just for a second, before she turned to the man beside her. Without another word, they left. I told my boss and coworkers about the encounter. We agreed to stay vigilant, but they hadn't done anything illegal. There wasn't much else to do. Then a few nights later, I saw the car, parked across the street, engine off, just sitting there. As I walked to my car, the feeling of being watched crawled over my skin like static. I clutched my keys tight. When I pulled out of the lot, I checked my mirrors. The car followed. It stayed back just enough to avoid suspicion, but every turn I made, it was still there. My heart pounded as I took a random side street. It followed, another turn, still there. I forced myself to think, stay calm. Then I pulled into the parking lot of a police station. The second I did, the car sped off. Weeks passed. I tried to move on. Then one slow night, the door creaked open. I sent my boss a text, trying to be discreet. When I looked up, she was already sitting at the bar, hands folded neatly. "Thought I'd come check on you," she said, her smile unchanged. Every hair on my body stood on end. I told her we were closing, but she pouted. "Just one old-fashioned." I hesitated but started making the drink, stalling for time. Then I heard it, the soft, unmistakable click of the front door locking. I whipped around. The woman was gone. Through the glass, I saw it. A black van idling outside, then metal rattling at the back door. Someone was trying to get in. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could, a metal shaker, clutching it like a weapon as I dialed 911. My mind screamed for me to run, but I froze, bracing myself. Then headlights flooded the lot. My boss. The sounds at the back door stopped. The van peeled out of the lot. Later we checked the security footage. It was worse than I imagined. Before the woman left, 2 masked figures had crouched near the front door, waiting. Another man had been at the back, banging his fist against the door, trying to flush me out. To make matters worse, the van's license plate was unregistered. The cops never found them. I still work nights, but I'm never alone anymore. And sometimes, I think about what would have happened if I'd run out that front door. I used to work the night shift at a small gas station convenience store off a quiet stretch of highway. I say used to, because after what happened a few months ago, I will never work a night shift again. It was a tiny, barely busy station once it got late. Most of my shift was spent restocking shelves, wiping down counters, and occasionally ringing up a trucker or a weary traveler passing through. The night in question is burned into my memory. It was just past 2:30 in the morning. I was left with nothing but the hum of the store's fluorescents and my phone to keep me company. Bored, I stepped outside for some air, rubbing my hands together against the cold. My breath curled into the crisp air, dissolving in the faint glow of the station's neon sign, which flickered intermittently. The night was thick with moisture, the kind that clung to your skin and made everything feel slightly surreal. The road stretched out empty in both directions, flanked by darkened trees that stood like silent sentinels beyond the lot. As I turned back toward the store, a movement at the edge of my vision caught my attention. My eyes snapped to the source, a man standing behind one of the pumps. How had I not noticed him earlier? He wore a dark red hoodie, the hood drawn up, hands buried in his pockets. There wasn't a car in sight, no reason for him to be there. But he wasn't moving toward the store either. He just stood there, half-turned, watching me. Something about his posture unsettled me. His movements were small, a sort of circular shuffle like he was trying to shake off nerves. I slipped back inside, making sure to keep an eye on him through the glass. Minutes passed. No car pulled up for him. He just lingered. Then, without warning, he strode toward the entrance. Not a casual approach, but a sudden decision, like he'd made up his mind all at once. The bell chimed as he stepped inside. He walked straight to the counter, stopping just a little too close. His stare was unsettling, sharp, and calculating. When he finally spoke, his voice was rushed, almost rehearsed. "Car broke down just before the pumps," he muttered. "Need a jump, or maybe just a little gas to get to the next town." The way he said it made my skin crawl. He wasn't even trying to sound convincing. His words felt hollow, robotic. I offered to call a tow truck instead. No, he said too quickly, shaking his head. "Just need a flashlight, maybe some help checking under the hood." Every instinct I had screamed at me. His tone, his watchful eyes, it felt like a test, like he was gauging how much I'd resist. But then doubt crept in. People coming into gas stations at odd hours were usually a little off. Maybe he was just socially awkward or high on something. I played along. "Where's your car?" I asked. He gestured toward the monitor behind me. I turned. Sure enough, a car sat parked just past the highway entrance, its dark frame barely visible under the hazy glow of the streetlights. For a second, I felt bad. Maybe he really did need help. And then it hit me. I had just been outside. That car hadn't been there. A cold wave of dread crashed over me. I studied the screen, my heart hammering. Then just beyond the car's rear bumper, I saw it. A subtle shifting shadow. Someone was crouched there, just out of view. I turned back to the man, forcing a casual smile. "Sure, let me grab my phone from the back first." He nodded, but his gaze stayed locked on me, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. I walked slowly, deliberately, until I was out of his sight line. Then I slammed my hand onto the emergency panic button beneath the counter. The alarm shrieked through the store. I expected him to react, to flinch, panic, run. Instead, his entire demeanor shifted. The anxious energy evaporated. He stood still, too still, then smiled, a slow, knowing grin. Not embarrassed, not surprised, just amused. He didn't say a word. He simply turned and bolted. I rushed to the monitors just in time to see them. Two figures sprinting, not toward the car, but into the woods behind the station. The car sat lifeless, its headlights dark. By the time the police arrived, it was exactly as I had seen it. The vehicle was still there, but the men were gone. No footprints in the dirt. No evidence of anyone running into the trees. And then one of the officers pointed something out, something I hadn't noticed before. The front passenger door was open. There had been a third person inside. The police took my statement, reviewed the surveillance footage, and towed the car. A few days later, they followed up. The vehicle had been reported stolen nearly a week earlier, over 100 miles away. No one had come forward to claim it. No missing persons. No other crimes connected to it. Just an abandoned car in the middle of nowhere, with no explanation. That was months ago. Still nothing. I don't know why convenience stores are such prime targets, but I can say one thing for certain. I will never work another night shift again. Working the night shift at Walmart isn't the worst job in the world, but after a while, it feels like you're just floating through time. The nights blur together. Same shelves, same routine, same dull hum of the overhead lights. I mostly stock the electronics section, which is nice because it's quieter than the rest of the store. Not many people come in at 2 a.m. looking for phone chargers and Bluetooth speakers. Most customers are either night owls killing time or truckers grabbing last-minute supplies before heading back on the road. That's why I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another guy wandering the aisles, maybe waiting for someone. But after a few minutes, I realized he wasn't shopping. He wasn't even pretending to. Every time I glanced up, he was there, lingering nearby, hovering in the next aisle over or standing too still by the clearance section. He wasn't looking at anything. He was watching me. I told myself I was overthinking it. The store is big, and maybe he was just taking his time. But something about the way he moved, always just close enough for me to notice, never picking anything up, set off a deep unease. I kept waiting for him to approach, to ask me something, maybe even hit on me. But he didn't. It was like he wanted me to see him, and that didn't make sense. I reached for my radio to call someone, but it was dead. Great. I debated whether I should find a manager when I felt a hand wrap around my arm. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but before I could react, a voice rang out, loud, friendly, overly familiar. "There you are." I turned, completely thrown off. A woman I had never seen before was smiling at me, gripping my arm like we were old friends reuniting. Before I could say anything, she leaned in, her tone dropping to something low and urgent. "That guy's been recording you. Follow me." My stomach dropped. I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance back. The man was still there, only now he wasn't even pretending to browse. He was staring right at me. A cold wave of fear crept over me. I didn't question her. I let her pull me away, clinging to the act she had so seamlessly created. I was beyond grateful that someone had noticed what was happening and put herself in an uncomfortable position just to help me. She kept up the performance as we walked, rambling about a trip she had taken, an inside joke we supposedly shared. I barely processed her words. My thoughts were stuck on him. Had he really been recording me? That was terrifying. I wanted to know if he was still following us, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around just yet. The woman steered me quickly through the aisles. I barely noticed where we were going, only that we were moving, that the distance between me and that man was growing. At some point, I expected her to drop the act, to let me go. But she didn't. When I finally glanced back, relief flooded through me. He was gone. "We're good now," I told her. "We should probably go find my manager." She squeezed my arm tighter. "No, he's lurking somewhere," she said, pulling me forward. I hesitated. The store was full of employees. What could he possibly do? At first I was terrified because no one had been around. But now that I wasn't alone, the fear was starting to seem irrational. "I think we're fine now," I said, planting my feet and twisting my arm slightly. "You can let go." She didn't. She smiled, but something about it was wrong. "Come on, just a little further," she coaxed, her grip tightening. That's when I noticed where we were. We had moved past the registers, past self-checkout, past the aisles with the most foot traffic. The warehouse section loomed ahead, dimly lit, nearly empty. Beyond that was the side exit, the one without cameras, the one employees used for loading shipments. And that's when it dawned on me. She was leading me straight to the exit. I didn't think, I just reacted. I screamed for help and yanked my arm free with all my strength. Her grip slipped just enough for me to break away. I didn't waste a second. I turned and ran for the front of the store. As I fled, she called after me. "Wait, come back." Then she said my name, a name I had never given her. Panic exploded in my chest, but I didn't stop running until I saw a coworker sprinting toward me, most likely reacting to my screams. I told them to call security, which they did immediately. But by the time we checked the store, both the woman and the man were gone. Security reviewed the footage. Just as I suspected, the woman and the man had entered together. She had been with him the entire time. His face was clear in one of the frames, but hers was always turned away. It felt deliberate, as if every second had been planned. The police got involved. The whole thing was labeled a failed abduction attempt. I'm still waiting for a resolution. That man should be easy to track down. His face was caught on camera. But I have no idea how that woman knew my name. And that's what terrifies me the most. They hadn't picked me at random. I was a direct target.